station of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game.
Big Ten champions. Big Ten champs.
National champions, yes.
Oklahoma City bound the Oregon Ducks.
Awesome day to be a Duck, man.
Boom inside. Touchdown Oregon. He gets loose. Fires. Hit. Pops the three. Oh, yeah. It's all Oregon.
This is Duck Insider. Duck Insider.
It's about how to be a group of people that know how to love each other to the absolute fullest.
Pleasure, joy to be with them each and every day. And I can't wait for the future.
It's just fun to be a part of a community that cares, that is passionate, and when we come together, powerful things can happen.
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Now let's go live to the Country Financial Studio to talk Oregon Duck Athletics.
It's a Wednesday inside the Country Financial Studio. Ryan Milano here with you because Joey Mack is on his way up to Portland. Oregon and Portland going up against each other in a baseball midweek series up at Joe Etzel Field. Joey just left maybe 5 minutes ago. He's making the trip up with the team as Oregon is completing what is a long road stand for the Ducks, a stretch of 10 games where 9 of them were on the road. The only game at home was against this Portland Pilots squad. We will break it down for you coming up here on Duck Insider today. Also get you caught up with Oregon football spring practices as those continue to roll forward as we get closer and closer to the spring game, which is about a week, 2.5 weeks away. On the 25th of April is when Oregon's spring game will be at Autzen Stadium. It's going to be a great day coming up on Saturday, April 25th, when it's going to be the Oregon spring game at Autzen Stadium, and then right afterwards, Oregon baseball playing against Penn State at PK Park. I encourage you to stay for both games. It should be a whole lot of fun. It feels like that weekend is like the biggest Eugene weekend of the spring because you've got the Oregon spring game. You got always an Oregon baseball home series. The Eugene Marathon is the next day. It feels like that weekend is just like, yeah, Eugene is the place to be. I am running it. Yeah, I am running the Eugene Marathon after the Oregon spring game and baseball game on Saturday, and then I will be in the booth after the marathon on Sunday with tired legs. I might just, kick them up, do the whole broadcast like that. You won't know. It's a radio medium. No one will have any idea that I will have my toes strictly in an ice bath that entire time when Oregon baseball faces off against Penn State in a couple of weeks from now. That's 3 weekends away. The Ducks play against Nebraska this weekend on the baseball diamond. Oregon then goes on the road to play Illinois next weekend and then returns back at home for Penn State. That is going to be the spring game weekend for Oregon baseball. But all of that is after what the game today is for Oregon baseball. It's the Ducks and the Pilots, a 5 o'clock game for Oregon going up against Portland, a 4:45 pregame show on the Oregon Sports Network. Joey talked to Waz a few minutes ago, a longer coach interview with Coach Wazikowski. So a healthy dose of Waz in the pregame show. So if you want to hear from Oregon's head coach, make sure to tune into the pregame show at 4:45 for Oregon going up against Portland. This is a rematch of a game that happened last week on Tuesday here at PK Park where Oregon, they lost this game to Portland. And the Ducks, they pitched really well, but the theme for Oregon as of late is that the Ducks offense just hasn't gotten going. Dating all the way back to the series against UC Santa Barbara when Oregon won that series on the road against UCSB. Oregon won 4-0, then lost 8-2, and then won 2-0. Even in a series win, Oregon only scored 8 runs across the 3 combined games, and it felt like Oregon's offense came late in those games as well. Well, then against Portland, the Ducks got shut out against the Pilots at PK Park. Miles Gostola, who is going to start for Oregon today, had a tremendous outing for the Ducks against Portland back here at PK Park. Ryan Featherston started the game, and then Gostola came in and threw 5 2/3 innings of work, 7 strikeouts, and just 1 walk allowed. He only allowed 3 hits as well. Only 1 run came on the board against Gostola in this game against Portland last week. But the Pilots were able to shut down Oregon with their pitching on the hill, and the Ducks were not able to score. It was a 3-0 loss for Oregon against Portland in the midweek last week. Then the Ducks went on the road in what was a bit of a weird series against Michigan. The series got moved up. Oregon traveled into the East Coast, got in a little bit late, so it was a game that was played after Oregon was only in Michigan for maybe 14 hours by the time Oregon played a Thursday game that the Ducks lost, got shut out. It was uncharacteristic. Oregon got shut out in back-to-back games for the first time since 2022. Oregon got back in the win column on Friday with a 5-2 win over Michigan in that series against the Wolverines over the weekend, and then it looked like Oregon was going to salvage a series win and win their 14th straight weekend series in a row. But the Ducks, who were up 3-2 in the ninth inning, allowed some two-out offense for the Wolverines. Bases loaded, 2 outs, and it was a Eugene native and Cooper Mullins who came to the plate, and he walked it off for Michigan. And it was a disappointing end to that series for Oregon. But the good thing about the Ducks going on the road to Michigan and that series being moved up is that Oregon has had a little bit of rest now before playing this Wednesday game against Portland. Normally your midweek games are on a Tuesday. Normally your weekend ends on a Sunday. Well, Oregon was able to travel back Saturday night from Michigan. So Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, no games. You barely ever get a 3-game stretch without games in the midst of the collegiate baseball season. So Oregon's had a little time to rest and recuperate after it felt like it's been go, go, go for Oregon over the course of the last few weeks. Ending a long road stand for the Ducks before they're back at PK Park against Nebraska over the weekend. And it always is an interesting competition whenever the Ducks face up against the Pilots. Portland's won the last 3 contests, and they've been close games in each one. The 2 before the one on Tuesday were both decided by 1 run. The game on Tuesday of last week was a 1-run game until Oregon allowed a few runs in the 9th inning and ended up being 3-0. But it was, again, a tight game and a pitcher's duel between Oregon and Portland. And especially when the Ducks go up to Joe Edsel Field, it just feels like weird things kind of happen whenever the Ducks go up there. A few years back, Oregon went up to Joe Edsel Field, and there was a foul ball that went into the light fixture, and it shattered a light bulb. And then glass just kind of sprayed everywhere across the field. It was a lengthy delay getting cleaned up. So it feels like there's oddities that always happen when Oregon and Portland face up against each other, when the Ducks go up to Joe Edsel Field. And this is a Portland team that is really good this year. They're 19-10 overall. They're 6-3 in the West Coast Conference. It's a team that has played some really difficult competition over the course of the last few weekends, and especially early in the season when they were navigating through non-conference play. They've had some really difficult series and some positive results that have helped their RPI. They're a top 75 RPI team, so this could be a big quality win for the Ducks going on the road to potentially get a top 75 RPI win. Right now, it would be right on that cusp of a quadrant 1 win if Oregon is able to go on the road and beat Portland coming up later today. 5 o'clock first pitch, 4:45 pregame show. Oregon is 35th in the RPI. That's dropped just a bit after Oregon's series lost to Michigan over the weekend, but still plenty of quality opponents coming up for Oregon to boost that back up, because the Ducks host a really talented Nebraska team coming up this weekend. The Ducks go on the road to play Oregon State in a midweek, surrounded by it's the Hillsboro game coming up next week on Tuesday for Oregon against Oregon State up in Hillsboro at the Hops Stadium. And then the Ducks go on the road to play Illinois. Back in Oregon, they go on the road to Corvallis to play Oregon State on a Wednesday series, and then they host Penn State. It's quality RPI games for Oregon over the course of the next 2 weeks, not only in the weekend series with a road series against Illinois and a home series against a talented Nebraska squad, a ranked Nebraska team that's red hot right now, but also Oregon in these midweeks are playing some high-quality RPI opponents around the rest of the state in both Portland and Oregon State. Tonight, it's going to be the Pilots against the Ducks, and Oregon will be throwing Miles Gostola, who has excelled in his midweek opportunities, especially in his last 2 outings. Gostola, 2 weeks ago, he took a no-hitter into the 7th inning. He took a perfect game into the 6th inning of the outing against UC San Diego, and then he backed it up last week against Portland, throwing 5 2/3, 3-hit, 1-run inning against the Pilots. Let's see if Miles Gostola, again, can have a solid midweek performance, and we know how crucial and vital a midweek starter that has as much experience as Miles Gostola, how much value that brings to Oregon. And he's somebody who has faced off against Portland a lot in his career as Gonzaga's Saturday starter over the course of the last few seasons. He's been in the same conference as the Pilots, and it showed. He had a lot of success against Portland, even in a tough luck loss for Oregon last midweek on Tuesday. Well, now 8 days later, Oregon and Portland facing off again up at Joe Etzel Field. A 5 o'clock first pitch, a 4:45 pregame show. Joey Mack making the trip, and he will have it for you on the Oregon Sports Network. Oregon and Portland getting ready for a baseball game later today. Oregon football getting ready for the spring game. And the 2026-2027 season coming up in the fall, going through spring practices, getting to talk to a few of the players and coaches from Oregon football when we return after this. It's Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by one of your local branches today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
We know you turn to the Duck Store for all your game day needs. And for students at the University of Oregon, it's even more. Class supplies, jobs, a seat on our board, a place to take a quick coffee break. Because we're your student-first, non-profit college store, every purchase you make directly supports the very community we serve. From working at our counters to studying in the classroom, from directing our stores to cheering in the stands, the people we serve, the students, are the very people who are the Duck Store.
Duck Insider continues from the Country Financial Studios in 1 minute on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. Being a veteran, it's interwoven into your DNA. Is really the absence of the connection and the purpose that can really drive a lot of veterans to some negative thoughts. For those who are in a suicidal crisis, the window of time to save somebody's life is very short. Our duty is to protect ourselves and protect our families. And one way you can do that is store your weapons safely. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
We're back inside the Country Financial Studio. It's Duck Insider, brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Ryan Milano here with you on a Wednesday. An Oregon baseball game day as the Ducks are going up to Portland at 5 o'clock, a 4:45 pregame on the Oregon Sports Network. It will also be televised on ESPN+. Oregon football preparing for the spring game coming up on the 25th of April. Moving through spring practices a few days ago, we got to talk with a little bit of the defense. Tony Tuioti, an assistant coach on the defensive side of the ball, in control of that front seven. The defensive line, Tony Tuioti, he always brings a special type of fire into practices, and then he's able to articulate it so well when he gets in front of the media. Defensive line for Oregon that returns a few members from last year, getting to talk with Tony Tuioti, breaking down Oregon's defensive front from spring practice a few days ago.
Not many defensive lines in the nation that are as deep and as experienced, or not deep, talented and experienced as you guys. What was the offseason conversation like with some of those guys after the Peach Bowl to get them to return?
Yeah, a lot of it is just really just trying to figure out what they wanted to do. You know, obviously one of them was Tatum. That was my son there. Teo with Amari and Bear too as well. You know, Bear announcing early, that was helpful, you know, because a lot of these guys want to play together. You know, and I think the way the season finished too as well put a certain taste in their mouths to the point where there's still some things that they want to achieve. Obviously, the culture has to look a certain way. The building's got to look a certain way for somebody to forego the opportunity to go to the NFL and come back. I mean, it's not just them. You look at somebody like Dante Moore, like why would somebody come back to college football, right? There's got to be some trust. There's got to be some connection. There's got to be a place where they feel that they can develop. And those guys went through the same process too as well. So I'm glad they're back. There's a lot of things for our young guys to be able to learn from through their experience. So the conversation was basically that, like, what do you want to achieve? What do you want in your goal? And they felt like they still had things that they wanted to get better at before you go to the NFL, because the NFL is not a developmental league. So those guys made that decision to come back, and I'm just glad that they felt right in their own decision. And Coach Lanning's been great with the process with everybody, not forcing them or tricking them to come back. Like, these are the reasons for you to come back. This is how we can help your game develop to put you in a better situation next year.
You guys added some depth, D-line, Robinson and Simmons. How have they look so far, and what do you expect from them?
Good. DeAndre's been a really good addition to us. He's a big body that's athletic. He can run. He's been to a few programs before he came here. It's just like a lot of the other guys that have come here. We got to be able to delete some of the things that were bad habits that they created and try to download some good ones for them that they can use to help them put them in a situation where they can win. You look at Jerome Simmons, another big body type for us. It's hard to find big bodies, and especially in the situation we were by the time we were done with the season, looking at some guys to fill up our roster. He adds that to our depth. So really good with him too as well.
A lot of the time when we ask Dan about something last season, he'll say, this is a totally new team, this is a new season. But when you have so much returning, at least on the top end, how do you kind of toe the line between hey, we just want to pick up where we left off and hey, we want this to be a new team? What does that balance kind of look like?
I think, just having Tatum, Teo, Mari, and Bear coming back, they know the standard, and we also know that there's a lot of room for us to get better at and improve. So we got to push harder to get where nothing's promised, nothing's guaranteed that we're going to get back to where we were last year. And every single day we got to continue to push that. So we talk about having a standard and living up to that standard each and every day. And it requires them to make a choice. And we push our guys here to choose hard every time, because on the other side of their greatness is choosing hard. So, having young guys like Matt Johnson, Aiden Breland, Elijah Rushing, these guys have stepped up a lot. They've been doing really good in spring. Excited about what they're going to be able to do for us here in the future.
Going back to some of the players' decision to return, I'm wondering, what was your role with Tatum in terms of just having a dialogue about what he was going to do next? And were you changing caps between dad and coach, or how was kind of your balance there, I guess?
Yeah. Again, it was pretty much the same process. Like, a lot of these guys are kind of like sons to me, spending a lot of time with them. But, obviously with Tatum, is just trying to figure out for him, what do you want to do? Do you feel like there's room for you to improve? He obviously wants to enter the NFL at the highest pick that he can get. And he's somebody that just, he's a team first guy too as well. He wants to leave here in the right place, trying to set a legacy for himself too as well. So that played a lot into it. And at the end of the day, I think him just being along with Teo to have another season again, having a chance to play again with Mari again, these guys have been together since they were freshmen. And you don't have those opportunities too often to be able to start your career together and finish together. And I think that was a big piece of that too as well.
There were reports that Tony Cumberland was involved in a car accident at some point earlier this week and that he's injured. I was wondering if you could speak on that and maybe give a status update on him.
Yeah, just real short with Tony. He was a passenger in a car accident. Obviously, we're thinking about him. He's recovering right now. He'll be out for the rest of the spring. So we're just keeping him in mind, praying for him and his family for a speedy recovery. And I'll just leave it at that point.
Circling back to Simmons and Robinson, do they, other than being big bodies, are there other traits they add that were imperative that you guys brought to the table to help complement Bear and Amari?
Yeah, you want to have guys that can play the run and be stout, especially in this conference. You can't have enough big bodies in the run game. A lot of teams that are playing deep in the playoffs, depth is so important. And the biggest thing for us is how can we find guys that have certain traits, want to find guys that can be physical at the point of attack, but also be able to rush the passer too as well. And we've had those kind of guys in the past, and they fit those similar traits and body types. So DeAndre does a really good job of being able to play with his hands and striking blocks and playing combination blocks, going back and just watching his tape. And then he's also athletic enough to be able to win and push the pocket inside. So those two guys, along with what we have, I mean, Matt Johnson has grown so much. He's going to be a young man that's going to, a lot of people haven't seen him play a lot, but Matt Johnson redshirted, and then he played pretty much every game in the playoffs. So you talk about the amount of development that he's made from redshirting after his fourth game and then playing every game in the playoffs. I'm really, really excited about his development and growth. Other guys like Aiden Breland that you haven't seen much the last couple of years. He's another guy that's grown tremendously this spring. He's basically a young man that can play all the positions. He can play a 5, he can play a 9, he can play a 3, he can play a 0. So he adds position flex to us. So really excited about the young guys. And so right now, the biggest thing for us in our room is how can we close the gap between the guys that are returning, that are possibly professional draft pick guys, and the younger guys. And so if we can do that as we get late to the end of the season, we'll feel good about where we're at.
It's early in spring. It's hard to assess with true freshmen, but I know Prince just arrived and Tank's been here for a little bit. Kind of what have you seen from those guys, and kind of what are the expectations of what they could provide early?
Yeah, really excited about Tank. Tank had a really good practice today. He's another one very similar to Aiden Breland, our big end positions where he can play the edge, he can slide inside and play the 3 technique, and Tank's done a really, really good job. It's a very complicated defense, and to be able to compartmentalize everything. He's done a great job with that. So in terms of Prince just got here in April, so this is his first week of practice, and it's kind of like dropping him in the deep end, and he's done a really good job of just trying to keep up with everything. So he adds some pass rush value to us, which is something that we always were looking for, and also does a really good job in trying to help us in the run game too.
Should go a little bit deeper on Elijah if possible. He's someone who obviously has the talent, just needs more opportunity. What specifically does he need to do to become more of that contributor and kind of have an impact on this defense?
Yeah, we had a really good talk with Elijah in the offseason. He's put on more weight. He's 285 pounds now. So he's tall, he's long, he's continued to get bigger and stronger, so he's able to anchor in the run game a lot better. When he first came in here, it was like 250. So trying to anchor in the run game and get as much knockback, he wasn't that strong enough to do that. So now he's growing into his body now, which is something that happens with a lot of defensive linemen when they come in. Like, you got to develop to be able to play that position effectively. And now at 285, he's able to get some knockback. And he always was able to provide some pass rush ability for us, but it was really like, can you improve in the run game and be more stout there for us? And that's been a point of attack for him, and he's done a really good job of making that a point of focus. And it's showing up in practice, which is awesome, because he's another player too as well that has that position flex to play the edge, slide inside, and also be able to rush from the interior. So I really like how we have our depth in the room, where we have guys that can play outside and play inside, and we can use that to our advantage to try to create mismatches.
You guys lost a lot of good leaders on defense, including Bryce. Have you noticed anyone sort of trying to take that mantle, maybe Jerry Mixon or anyone else sort of establishing themselves as the next Bryce?
Yeah, Jerry obviously is doing a really good job of, taking that step to be the guy, to be the vocal leader up front. Devin Jackson's also a guy that's been here before that's done a really good job. So we have guys that have been in the system for a while. Now it's their opportunity to carry the mantle. And they've done a good job of taking on that challenge too as well. A lot of our guys now, it's just a matter of just training the defensive linemen, really training their ears, to be able to listen to this voice. They got a certain pitch. So it's going to be loud at Autzen Stadium, but you really got to train them. It's kind of like whistles to a dog, so they got to hear that pitch. So for a long time, they've been trained to listen to Bryce. Before that, they've been trained to listen to Boss's voice, who's the commander. Now it's like, all right, who's the commander now? Who we got to train our ears to? And so, Jerry's been doing a good job of that, and also Devin Jackson too.
Wanted to get your thoughts on Nas Wyatt, and obviously we saw the pass rush ability that he had last year, but maybe getting him to be kind of an every down player. Where is he at in that kind of progress?
He's grown a lot. He's gotten a lot stronger. It's showing up in spring practice too as well. The way he strikes, the way he uses his hands. Obviously, he's got a great gift in rushing the passer, and he can win with speed. But now he's showing up to be able to win with speed and power. So that's always been the challenge for Nas. Every player that we have, they all have their individual growth plan. And one of those things for Nas was like, all right, how do we help you become a every down player, not just a DPR, designated pass rusher? And he's done a really good job bulking up and getting strong. And when you look at him, he's lean, he's kind of built up, but he's got very powerful hands for a guy that's his size. So he's also going to be another guy that's going to create a lot of havoc plays, and we're going to need that from him. And when we get a chance to go rush the passer, he's somebody that everybody's got to watch out for because he's definitely got a gift to do that. So proud of his development, where he's at so far too as well.
Tony Tuioti talking about the Oregon defensive front, an experienced defensive front, but also a lot of room to improve on that defense and that defensive line and front seven in particular going into the 2026 season at Autzen Stadium. Somebody who's stepping into a bigger role in that front seven, Jerry Mixon, talking to Oregon's linebacker when we return on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear Friday, Toyota says let's put good times in gear with the Tundra, Tacoma, and 4Runner. Want some cool available features? We've got power tailgates to power game days and a trailer backup guide that's the champ of the ramp. Heck, we might even cancel Monday. Toyota trucks. Find yours at toyota.com. Toyota. Let's go places.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by one of your local branches today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
More Duck Insider from the Country Financial Studios after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
This message is for Karina, our mom who finished her high school diploma at age 28. Hi, Mom. It's Emmettith and Nicholas. Congratulations on getting your diploma. You worked so hard and have taught us so much. We love you.
When you graduate, they graduate. Finish your high school diploma for you and for them. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You said you'd never buy your kid candy from the checkout aisle. Or forget extra diapers. You'd never lick your thumb to clean their face. Never, ever become a minivan mom. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk in temperatures as low as 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Never happens. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
It's a Wednesday inside the Country Financial Studio. Duck Insider brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Ryan Milano filling in for Joey Mack, who's on the road with Oregon baseball, going up to Portland at 5 o'clock. First pitch tonight against the Pilots. Oregon football through their spring practices. Just talked to Tony Tuioti, now talking to another member of the front seven, a player who is stepping into a bigger role as Bryce Betcher moves on to the professional ranks. Jerry Mixon looking to be that communicator in the middle of Oregon's defense. He is developing over the course of his few years with the program and now here through this spring into this 2026 season. Getting to talk to now an experienced linebacker in Jerry Mixon.
With Bryce gone, you're kind of the old head in the room now. Does it feel that way this offseason, and how have you kind of taken on that role?
Really just being more of a leader. I really don't feel that way because we all like in the same age gap. But being more of a leader, just talking out there, communicating with my defense, and just being a leader for the young guys.
Coach Tuioti just talked about defensive players trying to learn your pitch so they understand where the commands are coming from, like you guys had to learn Bryce because it can be loud. Mm-hmm. How do you go about trying to work on making sure guys recognize your voice and recognize that you're talking to them from wherever you are?
Really just because it'd be loud out there, so just getting close to the D-line, communicating with them, don't be too far, and just doing like hand signals with the back end because they're a little farther from me, but just making my voice high pitch so everybody can hear me on the field.
Coach was just also talking about how everybody has like a personal growth plan with the coaches, but I'm curious, just like what in your head is your growth plan for this year? What do you need to do to grow into this role as the guy?
Really just being more vocal, being more of a leader, and just encouraging my teammates. And then game-wise, just playing more physical, just being out there, being more sound, making the other team low-key fear me.
Another part of kind of maybe filling in for some of the Bryce is the green dot part. I'm wondering how much practice you guys had prior to this year when he was here, and then kind of what's that process been like to maybe stepping into that role now?
Yeah, in the practice last year, we both had it, so just making me getting used to it and stuff. Just hearing Coach Ham, he got a little accent, so it's a little different in the headset. But just hearing him and then just communicating to the defense.
Played more last year than you had in a long time. How did you feel at the end of the season, and how does your success last year kind of carry over into your confidence heading into this spring, like maybe it hadn't in seasons past?
Yeah, it carried over a lot. Just being more confident out there, really slowed the game down. Seeing what offense like to do, so I feel like that played a big part in it.
Past 2 years, Dan has made a big statement with his actions, not going to the portal for linebackers, just kind of staying with your group, showing his trust in you guys. How does that feel as a player in that room, knowing that he believes in what you guys are doing, and what is it like kind of trying to live up to that belief?
Yeah, it gives us confidence, All honor to go to Coach Michalowski. He helped develop all of us, getting the defense right. Really, it's hard to learn the system, so just sitting back with him, teach us a lot of things. So I feel like that gives us confidence that Coach Landon trusts us.
I'm wondering, Jerry, obviously the core group last year was kind of you, Bryce, and Devin. What's going to need to be seen from some of the younger guys to step in there and be, I guess, competent replacements into that rotation?
Really being more vocal, and then production, make plays. Our coach always say whoever make the plays is his favorite player. So you make plays out there, they got no choice but to put you in.
What are your impressions of some of the new defensive line additions, specifically D-tackle, Robinson, and Simmons?
They showed a lot of flashes out there. Getting the call, they learning the defense, and we got a long playbook. So just seeing them show flashes out there, and then seeing them get more comfortable.
Ahead of the Peach Bowl, Braden had to switch over to running back because of some of the injuries. What was that experience like for your whole room to see him go over? And curious, you guys had any words with him on the other side of the field now?
Yeah, just really show him like who he is as a person. Anybody else probably would have got discouraged, probably hit the portal, but he wanted to help the team any way he could. So I respect him for that.
Kind of following up on what I was asking earlier, what impresses you most about Braden, Dylan, Gavin, the guys who have come back who maybe we haven't seen a lot of and maybe we'll see this year?
Yeah, really just trusting the process. They go out there every day to attack. It can be hard as a young guy. You're not seeing the field like he was in high school, so just going out there and attack every day like it's their last.
Going into your last year, right, you're stepping into a much larger role than years past. Does that change how you approach this offseason as compared to how you approach prior off seasons now that you are stepping into that larger role?
I wouldn't say not really, but I feel like during the breaks, years before I would take breaks, go trips wherever I wanted to go. But this year I feel like I stayed down, grounded, stayed in Eugene over spring break and worked out and trained to improve my game. So I wouldn't say it changed a lot, but definitely put a little bit more effort into my game for sure.
Jerry Mixon, he had a few big plays for Oregon last year with a few huge interceptions, known as a ball hawk around the team, and now he's starting to step into a bigger role as the communicator of the defense, the green dot, and filling in that role that Bryce Betcher got to fill for Oregon over the last couple of years with the Ducks. Jerry Mixon talking to the media. We're getting to talk a little bit of offense coming up when we return with a new coach on the staff on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by one of your local branches today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
When life blindsides you with an injury, you need a team that's tough. For over 30 years, Morgan & Morgan has been fighting for the people. This season, we're proud to partner with Oregon Athletics. Because whether it's on the field or in the courtroom, we're both determined to do what it takes to win. Morgan & Morgan, proud partner of Oregon Athletics. Injured? Dial pound law. Morgan & Morgan, 10150 Southwest 6th Avenue, Portland. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome.
This is Duck Insider, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
We just kind of knew from the beginning that we were family.
They showcased a sense of love that I never had before. I mean, he's not only my parent, he's like my best friend.
At the end of the day, it's all been worth it. I wouldn't change a thing about our lives.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom? She started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Back inside the Country Financial Studio, it's Duck Insider, brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Ryan Milano with you on a Wednesday in Oregon baseball. Game day Wednesday, 5 o'clock, Ducks versus Pilots, and a 4:45 pregame on the Oregon Sports Network. Continuing to talk Oregon football as they navigate through their spring practices and getting to learn a little bit about the new quarterbacks coach, Koa Kai, talking about what he looks for in a quarterback, his development with Dante Moore, and everything else from Oregon's new leader of the quarterback room. Here's Koa Kai.
You played here. You were part of some of the most successful program or teams in this program's history. What's the journey been like for you, and now to be, part of this coaching staff and trying to help them lead back to that stage?
If you would have told me 15 years ago that I'd be back here coaching, I would have said you're crazy. So it's been pretty surreal to be able to come back to my alma mater and coach. I was lucky enough to play for some great coaches back then, Chip Kelly, Mark Helfrich, along with the rest of that staff that had been there for so long. But I think now with Coach Lanning, what he's done is pretty much just take that foundation, that blueprint that's been built, over the decades here, and take it in and run with it. And, the product on the field is what you see. But it's been surreal to see this place. I remember I joke with recruits all the time. When I was getting recruited, this used to be a parking lot, right? And this used to be, the grass fields outside. You'd share with soccer and with lacrosse. And the recruiting pitch back then in 2010 was like, hey, we're going to build this really cool facility. And, in 13 when they opened and I was a player, it was like, okay, you guys followed through on that. And then you heard the murmurs when I was a player here, but we're going to build this, we're going to do that. And now to be back, like I said, and see the school just kind of come full circle and deliver on those promises that have been promised to recruits over the years has been really cool to be a part of it.
Strange way to start this, but you were a player in the trenches. Now you're coaching quarterbacks. What was your process to getting to this point, and kind of maybe how does your playing history help as you weren't a quarterback?
No, that's a great question. I get it a lot. So, obviously I came here as a defensive end. After a year I moved to tight end and I played 4 years there. And then when I was done playing, I kind of was like, what do I want to do with my life? And so I moved back home to Hawaii and I pretty much fell into coaching. I was asked at the high school I went to come help out. And so I spent a year there coaching tight ends. And then after that, I transitioned to another high school that my dad was a coach at and was able to be a track coach there. I was a teacher. I kind of was an OC, called some plays and whatnot. And then in 2020, I had an opportunity with Todd Graham to interview at Hawaii for a GA spot. And so I went to Todd, I interviewed, and he said, hey, I have a defensive GA spot available. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take it. No big deal. And so in 20, I was a defensive line GA. And the following season, he's like, I want to move you with the offensive line. And so in 21, I was actually Elite Terry's GA at Hawaii. Got to work with the league. It was really cool. And then in 22, I was lucky enough to come out here and interview. And same process. And Coach Lanning kind of was like, hey, I have a job for you. I don't know what position it's with. I was like, fine, that's cool. And so my first year here, I was a running backs analyst, right? And then after 1 year, Dan's like, I want to move you to receivers. I said, sure. So I moved to receivers, worked with Junior Adams. And then the following year, Will was like, I want to move you with the quarterbacks. And so I've been with the quarterbacks now going on 3 years. And so I've pretty much, it's very different than most coaches' kind of process and their journey. But I think being able to have worked with all those different position groups and having been lucky enough to spend some time on defense kind of gives me a unique perspective on the game. And it's more of like a 30,000-foot view, if you will. And I'm appreciative of it. I remember when I was young, I used to look on Wikipedia pages of kind of famous coaches, and I'd be like, well, how did this guy work with all these different position groups? How do I be lucky enough to do the same thing? And I was sitting here 10 years later after starting my coaching journey. It's been, once again, another surreal experience. Like, I've had that opportunity to work with different position groups, and that's exactly what I wanted.
How much easier does it make it having somebody that Dan just described as a coach on the field in Dante as your starter in this year?
Oh, it makes a world of a difference. You know, I think that whole room in general is pretty mature beyond its years, but especially with Tay, this being year 3 in the system, you know, the things that we're able to get to, the things we're able to do, you don't really get that from a guy in year 1, right? And he's seen it. Having been able to sit behind Dylan Gabriel, right, and then having a year last year under his belt of a full season of starts, and now progressing here into his 3rd spring, you can see his progression. And it's funny, sometimes we'll cut on the old tape from his 1st spring here, and it's like leaps and bounds different. But it's definitely beneficial with a guy like that with so much experience, you know, savvy as can be, very intelligent. It's fun to work with, and we're definitely blessed to have him in the room. You know, we also have like Brock's year 3 in the system, right? Dylan's a very extremely intelligent individual. And so, like I mentioned, I think that room is mature beyond its years and very cerebral.
Building off that answer, how has Dylan kind of progressed since he's got on campus, especially coming off that injury?
Yeah. You know, Dylan's progressed well. You know, through the winter months, you know, we're still kind of nursing that injury. Now he's full go. He is beyond cerebral. You know, I've known him for a little bit. I've known his family for a little bit, and I always knew he was smart. But he has really impressed me with his football knowledge. I think because of that, you know, he's been able to pick up this offense at a very quick rate. There's really not much that we have to hold back when he's out there and we're calling periods. Like, he's pretty much in tune with everything we're trying to do, which is a lot. You know, it is a high volume offense. And I've just been extremely impressed with his intelligence. Obviously, his playing ability speaks for itself. Everybody knows he can throw the football. You know, he has a bunch of wins under his belt from his previous stop. But I think his cerebral ability has really impressed me and the staff and has allowed us to kind of progress him at a quicker rate.
Dan was just in here saying that last year you had a lot of the responsibilities of this position without necessarily having the job title, just so that Will could take a bigger picture view of the offense. What did that look like for you? What were you doing behind the scenes that really prepared you to step into this full role?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm very appreciative of the years I got to work with Will Stein. I learned a lot of stuff from him. Just kind of the way he approached the job, the way he approached offense and his, you know, perception of how the game plays. What did that look like? You know, me and Will would share responsibilities. You know, I'd run night meetings at times. I'd run corrections meetings. Sometimes I'd run install meetings, you know, tips and reminders during the course of a game week. You know, so there would be meeting time every day that I'd meet with these guys, whether it be in the morning or in the evening. You know, some one-on-one meetings as well. You know, running some periods in practice here and there, because it's funny, like, you think you know, right? A lot of guys, young guys, I could call plays, I could be a coordinator, until you're that close to those guys and you realize the breadth of, like, what their responsibilities look like. It's hard to run a room and also be a really good coordinator. And so my job last year was pretty much take stress off of Will's plate, like wherever I could get in and fit in, right? Okay, hey, can you run this meeting for me? Can you do this for me, X, Y, and Z? And so, you know, I just took those responsibilities, tried to do my best at it, you know, and progress forward.
What were conversations like with Dante this offseason when he's trying to make that decision, whether he's going to come back or go to the NFL? Because obviously there's got to be a lot of trust in you and the staff that he's going to get the development that he wants.
Yeah. You know, I think in that whole process, everybody has their own role in it, right? So, like, what Dan's role in getting Dante to come back looked different from my role, looked different from Drew's role, so on and so forth. And I think with Tay, you know, me and him really grew a closer personal relationship through the course of last season. We really shared some, like, personal things about one another in private. And so, you know, my role in getting Dante to come back, and it was collective effort here, is everybody involved. And my role was just pretty much to be that person he could talk to and confide in, right? Whereas, like, I really wasn't, obviously I wanted the kid to come back, right? But I wasn't going to push him one way or another. That wasn't my role in that decision, right? But it was just to be somebody I could be a sounding board for him if he were will and hear him out. And at times when he'd ask, hey, what do you think? I give him my piece, right? But I really wasn't the one pushing that rhetoric. It was more so that, hey, I have a really good private relationship with this kid. And I'm going to be that sounding board. And that was, there's other agents in that decision process that were more the ones pushing it. Hey, we can do X, Y, and Z. Or this is the reasons you should or shouldn't come back. But yeah, I mean, it was great. Obviously, having him come back I love the kid to death. He's jovial. I mean, we just went golfing on Easter Sunday as a quarterback room, which is really cool, right? Like, how many rooms in the country are you going to golf collectively on Easter Sunday? But that's the kind of room we have, and it really starts with him. So we're lucky. Once again, we're lucky that he came back, obviously.
Dan's talked about since day one, since he's been here, about giving guys opportunities to move up the coaching ranks. You're someone that's gone through that process of starting, as you said, with not even knowing what your duties were. Now you've got a room. Can you just speak to the overall mindset of this coaching staff, the culture here of developing younger coaches into bigger roles?
Yeah, I think that, that kind of starts with look at Dan's journey, right? I mean, like, it's ironic that me and him started our college coaching journey for the same guy, and Todd Graham, but like, look at his story, right? Like, he drove to Pittsburgh and sat in an office for a couple of days until Todd would meet with him just to get a GA spot, right? So when you think about Dan Lanning as a human, like, he's extremely driven, but he appreciates guys who have the same thought process and that same kind of grinder mentality, right? So like, he's created an environment here, whether it's for players, staff, the football staff, personnel staff, recruiting staff. Like, if you come in, you're a selfless human, and you are about the grind, because call a spade, this profession is pretty tough, right? Hours wise. And, but if you're committed to it and you're willing to do the work, he's willing to give you opportunities. And I think, I was lucky enough, like I said, I came in, I didn't know what my role was going to be. I kind of just took it and ran with it. I guess I did a good enough job in those early on years. My roles behind the scenes continue to increase. And I think that opportunity is available to anybody in this program. He really has created that. Just look at the players on the field. You don't have to mention names, but some guys who played last season, right? You might have not thought from the public perception they would have played, but those opportunities are afforded to them, just like the staff. And so I think Dan's created a really healthy environment. There's not many like this out there. I'm blessed. Like, he could have hired anybody for this job. Like, it's the quarterback job at Oregon. I'm not naive enough to think that he couldn't have gone and hired a big name. But I'm appreciative that he trusted in me, and he has that same trust and that same mindset of giving opportunities to people throughout this whole organization.
Curious on kind of what you've seen with KJ and his development and kind of where that growth process is going.
Yeah, no, I love KJ. He's it's funny, if you don't know KJ, you think he's a really shy individual, but that kid is full of life. He's got all the intangibles, right? He's got the size, he's got the height, he's got the speed, he's got the arm strength, and he's progressed well. I think, you want to talk about guys with probably the best arm talent in the room. KJ's probably the top of that. And, he's progressing like the rest of those guys in that room. I think for him, I think this is for any high school quarterback, right? When you come from high school, like, what are you usually running? Like, some type of spread system, right? Something that's pretty simplistic. And we're a little bit more NFL-esque here, which is beneficial from our guys. But that acclimation is kind of tough when you transition from high school to college. Like, you're not just playing against better players. Now the system's a little different. So I think he's acclimated well. We've definitely seen improvements this spring, and I look forward to seeing what the rest of spring looks like for him, and especially fall camp.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the things you did last year. What are maybe some things that has anything changed this year? Or is it just kind of a title change for you?
Yeah, some things have changed. I mean, obviously, you're on the road recruiting now. But in regards to the day-to-day, a lot of that's similar. Like I said, me and Will, we just play off each other last season, and a lot of it's more on me now. But, Jay Johnson that Dan brought in, I can't speak highly enough about Jay. Talk about an asset to have in that room, a guy who's coordinated at the Power 4 levels at multiple stops, a guy who's coached quarterbacks for decades. Like, Jay has been such an asset to not just the guys, but also to myself. Super appreciative of that, obviously, and we're super lucky to have him. But the day-to-day role is pretty similar. A few things have changed, but it's more or less a title change, You're
coming from the background of a guy who didn't play the position. What's just been the process for you, like learning what it takes to be a quarterback at this level, and not only just learning that for yourself, but to the point where you can actually teach it to the players?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think when you speak with the quarterback position, I've spent a lot of time in the past couple of off seasons, obviously, working with people, learning the fundamental aspect of the position, right? Because like you just mentioned, I didn't play it, right? So I don't really have that in-person experience. But I spent a lot of time the last couple of off seasons learning the intricacies of the fundamental aspect. Beyond that, like when you really start thinking about quarterback play, it's a very cognitive position, right? I would argue 80% of what they do is cognitive and cerebral. So it's like, how do I streamline their thinking? How do I streamline their thought process? I say this all the time, like Drew Maringer is the OC. Dante Moore is the trigger man, right? So Drew's got this vision. Dante's the one on the field. So what is my job? I'm the conduit between the two. How do I take Drew Maringer's vision and how do I work with Dante Moore or all of our quarterbacks and how they perceive the game and how do I make that and help that vision come to life, right? So when you think about coaching the quarterback, yes, the fundamental aspect I've had to learn over the years, but the more football you understand and the more football you learn, a lot of it is training these guys' minds how to think and process. And the more efficient you can make that, the better player they usually are.
You touched on the recruiting aspect being new to you. You've been on the trail a little bit. You've done some evaluations. Can you just speak to the traits, what you're looking for on the trail to play the position?
Yeah, it's a great question. All right. You go to any 7-on-7 tournament. Okay, you'll probably find 100 kids who can throw the ball. Yeah, it's probably an outlandish number, right? But you're going to find a lot of kids there who can throw the football, right? Because why? There's no pass rush. Okay, the game's not real. You're running these crazy coverages. You're running these crazy route concepts, right? Like nothing's real. You can find a bunch of kids who can throw the football. Okay, you cannot find a bunch of kids to play the quarterback position, in my opinion, because it comes down to the cognitive aspect. You can go back through the years. Would anybody have taken Phillip Rivers out of high school with his throwing motion? Probably not. Right? Could Peyton Manning throw a spiral consistently towards the end of his career? Probably not. Right? But why were those guys such elite quarterbacks? It was the cognitive aspect of their game. It was a processing aspect. So for me, like, yes, like there are some semantics and there are some things that you need to worry about with the throwing motion and whatnot. But like, really, how smart is a kid? Right? What is his emotional intelligence? What is his football intelligence? That is one of the top things that we look for here, especially with the way that we play football. Right? It's more like I mentioned, NFL style. You have to be smart to play the position, right? And especially at this place. So for me, a lot of it is getting to know these kids. Like I ask them a question like this all the time. Hey, do you like chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream? Okay, the minute a kid pauses, I don't really want that kid, right? Because you need to have some type of conviction, right, wrong, or indifferent. Okay, so whether you like chocolate or you like vanilla, I don't really care. But if you sit there and say, coach, I don't know. Is it melted? Is it not? What's the brand? So on and so forth. Like, what is this kid going to do on third down in front of 110,000? He's probably going to think about it more than he should. He's not going to have conviction, right? So it's, like I just said, long-winded, I understand, but it's the mental aspect is really what we're after.
So good to hear from a former Duck, now in a coaching role, coming back to the University of Oregon. He's been here for a few years as an assistant, and now into, well, like an official assistant capacity as Oregon's quarterback coach. Great to hear from Koa Kai. Now stepping aside, breaking down more of Oregon baseball tonight, as well as some Big Ten honors in track and field, and women's golf, who just finished up a weekend tournament, or rather a midweek tournament. We'll break it all down when we come back. It's Duck Inside on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, we're more than just an award-winning golf course and practice facility. Our events team offers all-inclusive event pricing that allows us to take care of all the details while you enjoy your event. Our indoor and outdoor venues offer you a wide variety of fully staffed options that put the focus on you. From weddings to business and social events, at Shadow Hills Country Club Events Center, you get the benefits of a resort atmosphere and amenities in a peaceful country setting, just minutes from downtown Eugene. Call for a tour today or visit shadowhillsevents.com.
Hey Duck fans, at Country Financial, they make insurance easy. Whether you're shopping for home, auto, or more, their representatives will take the time to understand your specific needs and explain what options work best for you. Worry less and feel more confident knowing you're covered. Visit countryfinancial.com to get started today. Experience more with Country Financial. Auto and home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, and Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
More Duck Insider coming up on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
When I smoke weed, I get lost in the music. I like to isolate each instrument. The rhythmic bass, the harmonies on the piano, the sticky melody.
Hey, careful, babe. There's someone crossing the street.
Sorry, I didn't see him there.
If you feel different, you drive different. Don't drive high. It's dangerous and illegal everywhere. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
I'm coming home to the place that I remember. Back to the land of my first love. Would you spread wide your arms for this wayward son? I left my heart in Oregon.
We are having fun in the Country Financial Studio here on a Wednesday, getting ready for Oregon baseball today. Also closing up Oregon women's golf, who's at the Silverado Showdown. A lot of golf talk in the Country Financial Studio over the course of the show today. The Masters starting tomorrow. Wyndham Clark, the pro duck, getting ready to take on Augusta. But Oregon women's golf just took on the Silverado Showdown. And Oregon with a pretty strong finish, a third-place finish for the Ducks. The Ducks finished 1 over par with a 9-under day here in round 3. The Ducks, they were 10 over going into the day, put together a really strong showing to finish in third place behind Southern California, who's the second-ranked team in the country, as well as Eastern Michigan. Oregon with a 1 over total and a 9-under on the day. Tong An was Oregon's low score with a 3-under score today and went even for the tournament. Oregon track and field with some honors from the Big Ten. The co-track athlete of the week, Simeon Birnbaum, with a really strong performance at the Stanford Invitational over the weekend. He put together a huge 5K performance, a 13:19.73. It leads the NCAA, and it's a top 6 time, the number 6 time in Oregon program history. It beats his previous PR by over 12 seconds, and it marks Oregon's first outdoor track athlete of the week award this season. Simeon Birnbaum, he's putting himself in the mix. Oregon always does in these middle distance and distance events on the track, and Simeon Birnbaum with a really strong showing at what was a stacked field at the Stanford Invite to put together a 13:19 5K showing and put himself in top 10 in Oregon history and as the current leader in the NCAA this year. Oregon baseball going on tonight, a 4:45 pregame, a 5 o'clock first pitch. Joey making the trip up to Joe Etzel Field for the Ducks and the Pilots. Oregon just coming off of their first weekend series loss in over a year. How will Oregon respond against a Portland team that got Oregon's number last week in the midweek? Miles Gostola on the hill. Let's see if Oregon can reverse that script and get back in the win column before a weekend series against Nebraska. 5 o'clock first pitch, Oregon and Portland in a clash for the state. It's always good when the Ducks and Pilots are going after it. Go Ducks, everybody.
You wanted to be cool, which led you to smoking, which led to a pack a day. Then you met that special someone, which led to starting a life with them, which led to wanting to live longer, which led to quitting. Then you heard you may be at risk for lung cancer, which led you to getting a low-dose CT scan. If you smoked, get scanned. Talk to your doctor and learn